I ain't got the brains to make this up. Hello everyone, welcome to my review of the newest film in the Harry Potter franchise. It's been a few years since we've gotten one, but this one brings back director David Yates, and it is starring Eddie Redmayne, Katherine Waterston, Alison Sudol, Dan Fogler, and Colin Farrell. Before I delve into the review, I just want to say there will be no plot spoilers, or at least I will be as vague as possible when it comes to mentioning anything related to the plot. This film is centered around Newt Scamander, portrayed by Eddie Redmayne. He is a magizoologist. He goes around the world collecting and learning about all of these magical creatures. And in this film, he ends up in New York City. But it's not New York City now, it is New York City in 1926. The events in this film take place 65 years or so before the events in the Harry Potter film franchise as well as the book series. And while in New York City, a few of his magical beasts happen to escape, and he has to go around and collect them before they create a lot of problems. First, I want to discuss the positive aspects of the film. This is not David Yates' first time directing a film in this world. He directed 4 of the previous Harry Potter films. He directed Harry Potter Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, as well as both of the Deathly Hallows films. So this is a world that he knows very, very well. And I have to say, for all of the problems I kind of have with him, his aesthetics for this world I think are fantastic. And in this film, he once again captures a great aesthetic to the world. His set design, his lighting, the mood he sets in this world, he knows this world very, very well. And it is no surprise that he's going to be directing these subsequent sequels in this film franchise, because there are going to be a total of 5 films in this new kind of prequel film franchise. Also, he knows how to shoot the magical action very, very well. He knows the special effects, he knows the choreography well, he knows the editing very well. So a lot of what you see in this film should be very, very familiar because we've seen it several times before. So that was very comforting to me to see a lot of familiarity, because when you go into this film, you're going to be thinking a lot about Harry Potter, because this film is very much using the Harry Potter name in order to market it, which is very, very smart on Warner Brothers' part, because those films were massively financially successful for them, as well as critically for the most part. Right away in this film, from the opening credits, you feel like you are in the Harry Potter world, and to a certain extent you are. It is, though, a different film, and I'll probably get to that when I talk about the negatives later on. I will also say the acting and the casting in this film is very, very good. I would dare say great. Whatever certain qualms you may have about Eddie Redmayne, he really plays these quirky kind of nervousy type characters very, very well. I know there is a penchant now for people not to like Eddie Redmayne. He does have a certain way that he acts that is very off-putting for some people. I personally don't mind it for the most part. And in this film, he really gives a great performance when it comes to Newt Scamander. The Newt Scamander we get in this film is very shy, very nervous. He's not a people person. He's kind of antisocial, kind of annoying to some people. And Eddie Redmayne really pulls off all of those aspects very, very well. Katherine Waterston, who I wasn't too familiar with her work until I actually looked her up on IMDb, gives an also very good performance, as well as Alison Sudol, who plays her sister, who is very much the opposite of her when it comes to characters. It's very interesting to see the different meshes of characters we get in this film. We get kind of the nervous, antisocial Newt Scamander. We get almost the straight-laced Katherine Waterston. We get kind of the sassy, sexy Queenie that is her sister. And then we come upon Dan Fogler's character. Dan Fogler is an actor that I haven't been too fond of, but he is surprisingly great in this film as Kowalski. Kowalski, who is a no-mage. No-mage is essentially what the American wizards call muggles. In Great Britain, they're called muggles. In America, they're called no-mages. Not really a fan of the word, but whatever. But Dan Fogler in this film is very much our surrogate insert into the film. He is a human, he doesn't have any magical powers, he kind of just comes along almost accidentally and is thrown into the mix when it comes to all these wizards and magic, and we are very much put in his place as audience members, and it's really fun to see him go on this wild magical ride along with us. Also, he does deliver a lot of great comic relief and a lot of heart to the film, surprisingly a lot of heart to the film. And we also come upon Colin Farrell's character, who portrays, he's a different role than the other characters I just mentioned, but I won't give away any plot spoilers or anything like that. But what I will say is, Colin Farrell, I think, is very much an underrated actor, at least underrated right now, and he gives a very decent performance in this film, although I would have liked to have seen his character develop more when it comes to his motivations, as well as perhaps backstory, but I'll probably get to that when I get to the negatives. Also, I have to say, extreme imagination was put into this film when it came to the animal designs. There is such great imaginative animal designs in this film. Also, the CGI is very, very good. It is CGI, though. You will notice it as being CGI, but it is still great from a conceptual standpoint. The concepts that are utilized for these animals, I think, are fantastic. And I was really glad to see so much imagination put in this film. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this screenplay is written by J.K. Rowling herself, the original author of the Harry Potter books. Someone who did have a lot of input when it came to the Harry Potter films, but she never wrote any of those screenplays. This is actually her first screenplay and her first foray into screenplay writing, which is very different than novels. I think she did an overall decent job for someone who's never done this before. It's very decent. There are some problems when it comes to the screenplay that I'll get to when it comes to the negatives, but overall, decent screenplay for a first-time writer and for a first film in a much larger franchise. Okay, now to the negative aspects of the film. There is, like I just mentioned, there are certain writing problems I have with the film, certain screenplay and plot problems I have with the film. The first act of this film, I think, struggles mightily to give us a lot of context and to really insert us into the world properly. We're not really given an easiness into this world because it is not the Harry Potter world that we really know. Although it's very similar, this is years before any of that happened, so this is very much a brand new world. And I'll have to say this, even though I'm talking about the negatives, it's kind of great that this film can very much stand on its own in that way, but in order for it to stand on its own, it needs to really establish us in this world. And it doesn't really do a great job of doing that initially. I feel like the first act of this film suffers mightily in that sense. It really suffers mightily in establishing the plot, where we're going, these characters, their motivations, who they are, what they're doing. It really struggles with that. And I found myself, in the first act of this film, really kind of disappointed at kind of this disjointedness or this messiness. But when it came to the second and third acts and things started really getting down into when you started getting into the heart of this plot line, that's when things really started to get going. You became more involved, more enmeshed, you started to understand where we are and what things were going on. Also, a negative aspect I have of the film is that the film has a lot of tonal problems, because there are essentially two plot lines going on in this film. I won't give you any details about either of them. There are two plot lines in this film, and one is light and one is rather dark, and they crisscross back and forth sometimes, so you're going through different tonal levels, and it's really jarring sometimes when you don't get as smooth a transition from light to dark or from dark to light. It's really a problem throughout the film, and really comes to a head later on when in the third act of the film these two plot lines definitely clash with one another. And they are clashing throughout the film, but they definitely clash in the third act. And seemingly with the third act, the film, I thought, struggled a little bit when it came to ending the film. I thought it kind of dragged out a little too long towards the end, specifically after the main climax. So despite these problems, I do really like the film. The film does suffer from a lot of underwriting problems. I think that these characters are somewhat underwritten. They're holding a lot back when it comes to even the Newt Scamander character, who we get a little bit about his past character and why he is the way he is, but they're really holding back a lot of those details to use in subsequent films, and that is kind of the problem with franchise building right now, is that we're not given all of the information right now. They hold everything back because they need, they need substance for the other films. And so I think we're going to get more of that in the second, third, fourth, and fifth film. Also, while this isn't necessarily a negative aspect of the film, I thought I would at least mention it perhaps as a disclaimer or something like that, because I did refer to it earlier on. The film, while it is in the Harry Potter world, is not quite a Harry Potter film. It does have flashes of Harry Potterness in it, but if you're going into it thinking you're going to get that same type of magical feeling or the wonderment or things like that, you may or may not get that depending on your perspective. But I'll just say this, there are sprinkles throughout of that. It's not full on like it was in the Harry Potter films. I will also say the film is very entertaining, specifically when they delve into a lot of these set pieces when it comes to capturing the various animals that are on the loose. It is whimsically and wonderfully entertaining. It is extremely well shot, well done. There is also a lot of great comic relief in this film, specifically done through Dan Fogler's character, but also through the magical beasts as well. There is one specific magical beast who really sticks out in the film, and he pops up a few times, and he is just cute and wonderfully funny, getting into all kind of mischief. He'll really remind you probably a lot of your pet that you have at home. So with that being said, I'm going to give this film a 3.8 out of 5 stars. This has been my review of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, directed by David Yates. If you like this video, please check out my other movie reviews as well as my episode reviews for the various comic book television series.